Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the podcast. And today, I'm going to go my review of AEW's Dynamite. Starting off the night, before the night even gets started, we have a special guest for commentary. The legend himself, Mr. Bryan Danielson, joins the commentary team throughout the entire night. Last night on Dynamite. Starting off the night, though, we got Will Ospreay and Jon Moxley face-to-face. Ospreay comes out to the ring first. Grabs a microphone, he praises the fans, he talks about the history that he's had in Scotland, where Dynamite was last night. Ospreay says that he's also terrified, though. Ospreay says that he wasn't medically cleared for Forbidden Door, and that he had to sign off for this matchup, hence the reason why it's a lights-out steel cage match. Ospreay says that he's aware of the risk, but praises AEW. Ospreay says that he's doing this for revenge on Jon Moxley. After that, Jon Moxley is here with Marina Shafir. Ospreay and Moxley get face-to-face in the middle of the ring. Claudio and Wheeler Yuta are ringside. All of a sudden, LA Knight, Jesus. Knight and Bailey come out to the ring. They attack the Death Riders. Tanahashi is here. Tanahashi ends up attacking Jon Moxley and the Death Riders, which gets us into our first match of the night. It is the Death Riders taking on Tanahashi, Mike Bailey, and Knight. The match itself, I thought it was a good match. Back and forth matchup between both teams with Tanahashi, Bailey, and Knight keeping the pace of the match. Marina Shafir attacks Knight ringside. The referee then sees this, throws out Marina Shafir. Ospreay then comes out of nowhere, takes Marina Shafir to the back. Bailey hits a springboard moonsault to the outside. Bullet Club War Dogs are here. They attack Tanahashi, Bailey, and Knight. Ospreay is here as well, carrying a body bag. Tanahashi, though, with all the chaos going on, ends up hitting the finish, pins for the 3. And your winners of the match are Tanahashi, Bailey, and Knight. After the match, the Death Riders and the War Dogs attack Tanahashi, Bailey, and Knight. Young Bucks are here. They attack Ospreay. The Conglomeration are here. They attack the Young Bucks. Darby is in the body bag. Darby attacks the Death Riders. The Ops are here as well. The Ops attack the Death Riders. Darby hits a coffin drop off the balcony, taking out everyone, pretty much sending a message to the Death Riders leading up to their matchup at Forbidden Door. Moving on from that, we have Adam Copeland and Christian Cage in the middle of the ring being interviewed by Tony Schiavone. Copeland goes out to the ring first, he grabs a microphone and says him and Christian are one of the greatest tag teams of all time. Kind of hard to disagree with that. Copeland then calls Christian an asshole, but says that Christian is his asshole. Christian then says that he found himself and says that nothing has changed and he will change nothing. Christian says that this is not a happy reunion between himself and Copeland. Cage then says that the new him will be Copeland's best tag team partner that he has ever had. Kip Sabian and Mother Wayne are here. Nick Wayne is shown on the Titantron holding crutches. Nick Wayne then mocks Copeland and Christian Cage. Wayne looks to be hurt. Looks like he will not be a part of this match. Wayne says that he has a broken foot, which takes him out of the Forbidden Door. All of a sudden, then we see a video being played on the Titantron, and it's none other than the return of Luchasaurus, or a.k.a. Killswitch. Killswitch comes out to the ring. He gets face-to-face with Copeland and Christian Cage. He ends up attacking both Copeland and Christian Cage, and looks like Killswitch will be the replacement of Nick Wayne in their tag team matchup against Christian Cage and Adam Copeland. Moving on from that, we have the tag team title tournament final. It is FTR taking on Brody King and Bandito. I thought it was a decent match. It was a back and forth matchup between FTR, Brody King, and Bandito, with Brody King and Bandito keeping the pace of the match. Dax and Brody both exchange in the middle of the ring. Dax then hits a pile driver on Brody King. Stokely Hathaway gets involved, hits King with a loaded sling. This takes out Brody King. Ringside, Dax then tells fans to respect Stokely Hathaway. The fans then boo Stokely. Dax and Bandito both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Bandito hitting a frog splash off the top rope for a near fall. FTR then hit a shatter machine, followed by hitting a pile driver on Brody King off the apron that looked absolutely brutal. FTR then hit another shatter machine for a near fall. Wheeler then flies through the ropes, and then Wheeler ends up going through a table. All of a sudden, the bell sounds, and the match ends in a time limit draw. And then it was announced that Tony Khan made the announcement that it will be FTR versus Bandito and Brody King versus the Hurt Syndicate for the AEW Tag Team titles at this year's Forbidden Door. Some interesting stuff there for Mr. Tony Khan, which I'll talk about towards the end of the podcast on how I feel about AEW's tag team division. Moving on from that, we have Adam Page. Adam Page comes out the ring, grabs a microphone. Adam Page mocks MJF. He promises to destroy MJF at Forbidden Door. MJF music hits. MJF then is shown on the Titantron with Mark Briscoe tied up. MJF is then surrounded, or pretty much has an entourage with him, if you will, with Ricochet and the Gates of Agony. Briscoe's tied up. MJF then starts to throw gasoline on the tied up Mark Briscoe. MJF's holding a lighter. MJF then tells Adam Page that he has 3 requests or 3 demands for their matchup at Forbidden Door. And those 3 demands are as follow: that the title can change on a disqualification, also on a countout, and that the contract that MJF currently has right now for an AEW title opportunity will not be on the line in their matchup at Forbidden Door. After this, Page pretty much gives MJF what he wants because he's obviously worried about Mark Briscoe, and Page agrees to the demands, and it looks like we will, in fact, have Adam Page versus MJF at Forbidden Door for the AEW World title. Moving on from that, we have the main event of AEW Dynamite. It is a tag team matchup. It is Athena teaming up with Mercedes Moné to take on Alex Windsor and Toni Storm. I thought the match itself was a good match, man. Back and forth matchup between both teams, with Windsor and Toni Storm keeping the pace of the match. But Athena ultimately hits the finish, pins for the 3, and your winners of the match are Athena and Mercedes Moné. Hats off to Athena and Mercedes Moné for getting the win in this matchup. Couple of things I want to talk about, man, when it pertains to AEW Dynamite before I get the hell up out of here. Was I a super fan of the show last night? No, I was not. There's a lot of shit going on with AEW, man, that's just not meeting the eye, if that makes sense to y'all. And there's a lot to really dissect from last night. I want to start with the tag team matchup, the tag team tournament that we had, the finals, if you will. Last night on Dynamite, we had Brody King and Bandito teaming up to take on FTR. Now, there's a lot of shit going on backstage from what we've been seeing as of late, specifically when it's surrounding the Hurt Syndicate, MVP, and Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin. Now, there has been rumors and speculation that Hurt Syndicate do not want to drop the titles to FTR. Why? I have no idea. MVP has been in the news with AEW as well, having some comments towards Speedball Mike Bailey. They tried to, say that was false, try to make a mockery of it. We don't know really what's going on backstage between, superstars in AEW. But what I do know is this. If, in fact, it is true that the Hurt Syndicate refused to drop the titles to a tag team as FTR, I think is absolutely abundantly fucking ridiculous, to be honest with you. And this is the thing that pisses me off with the whole Hurt Syndicate deal with this is, and Tony Khan's at fault for this too. Tony Khan has a tendency not to be a boss. He's letting the inmates run the asylum. When you have talent that are working for you, coming up to you, letting you know, hey, we are not dropping the titles to these fucking guys, that's a fucking problem. That's a huge problem. Now, a lot of people, they either love or hate FTR. Me personally, I think FTR is one of the best tag teams of my generation. Dax Hardwood and Cash Wheeler, by far one of the best tag teams on the planet in my generation. With that being said, the money match to make, and I'm not taking anything away from Bandito and Brody King, but the money match to make would be Cash Wheeler and Dax Hardwood, FTR, taking on Hurt Syndicate at Forbidden Door, and possibly having FTR actually go over and beat Hurt Syndicate for the AEW Tag Team titles, because the story writes itself. We know that there is some heat there between Adam Copeland and FTR. Now, a lot of people, especially leading into All Out. Now, this still could possibly happen. But leading into All Out, it's going to be in Toronto, Canada. Obviously the hometown, basically, or at least Canada, the hometown of Adam Copeland. The money match to make would be, at that point, FTR defending those AEW Tag Team titles against Copeland and Christian Cage. Now, again, this can still happen. But with the fact of the matter being is that the Hurt Syndicate specifically have come out and told people, and probably had told Tony Khan more than likely, that they do not want to drop the titles to FTR. They do not want to take the pinfall from FTR, which I don't know what the situation is between FTR and the Hurt Syndicate. I have no idea. Then we get to this match last night, and this match turns into a time limit draw, which then slots Brody King and Bandito into this matchup. Now we have a triple threat tag team matchup for the AEW tag team titles, when most likely either the Hurt Syndicate are going to take a pinfall from Bandito and Brody King, or the Hurt Syndicate are just going to walk out still AEW tag team champions, getting the pinfall on Brody King and Bandito. I don't know why the Hurt Syndicate do not want to do business with FTR. I have no idea. To me, I think it's absolutely fucking stupid, to be honest with you. And my thing is, if this was the route that we were going to go originally, then why the hell did we have to have a 30-minute match between Brody King, Bandito, and FTR just to automatically assume that, okay, we're going to throw all three of these tag teams in a match at Forbidden Door? The AEW tag team division right now is fucking abysmal. And I made it abundantly clear now for the past few months. The tag team division for AEW is dog shit. I'm sorry. It's not even remotely close to what it was in the first 3 years of AEW. It's not. And at this point, I understand that AEW is still acquiring talent. I know Isla Dawn supposedly made her AEW debut on Collision, or the AEW Collision taping. Great. It's a great addition to the female roster. Tony Khan needs to enlist in tag teams, to be honest with you. I mean, Authors of Pain, they're free agents from what I understand. You bring them in. Something. There needs to be more tag teams for this division right now. You know, we saw the return, if you will, of one part of the Guns, and then we saw the return of Juice Robinson. We need the Gun Club back. They need to come back and run roughshod on the tag team division. I don't know if the grizzled young veterans are still a part of the AEW umbrella. They need to bring them in and put them into the fold. If there's tag teams within Ring of Honor, they need to come in. Because right now, the tag team division for AEW is fucking abysmal. It's horrible. And right now, I mean, I'm a big fan of the Hurt Syndicate as well. I think Lashley and Shelton Benjamin are severely underrated and one of the best things going for AEW right now. One of them. They're immensely over within AEW, but the issue that I have with this is the bullshit drama between the Hurt Syndicate and FTR. That they're not willing to take the L from FTR. When the money match to make, like I had mentioned earlier, being as it may, that All Out's going to be in Canada, we can possibly see FTR defending those AEW tag team titles against Copeland and Christian Cage in Toronto. That's the match to make. And obviously there's still some unfinished business there between Copeland and FTR. I mean, Christian Cage even made it a point last night in the segment that he had between himself and Copeland that he was willing to possibly help him with the FTR situation. So this could lead into a possible tag team matchup between Christian and Copeland taking on FTR for the AEW tag team titles. That's another possibility because, you know, we know that at Forbidden Door that it's going to be Christian Cage and Copeland teaming up for the first time in many, many years to take on Kip Sabian, and the return of Luchasaurus, which I will talk about here in a second. But that's the match to make. How this is going to play out at Forbidden Door is going to be very telling leading into All Out, because we got about 3 weeks and we're back at another pay-per-view for AEW, which is going to be All Out at the Scotiabank Arena in Toronto. So, you know, we're going to have to start looking at the fact that, okay, how Forbidden Door is going to play out, and then how we're going to get a little bit of build here leading into this year's All Out, which seemingly is damn near sold out. So we're going to see how this is going to play out. But to me, that was one of the things that stuck out the most for me, that, you know, the Hurt Syndicate are not willing to do business with FTR. And that's the reason why Bandito and Brody King are also a part of this match. And my thing is, if we were going to have a tournament and this was going to be the outcome anyway, what the hell was the goddamn purpose of having a tournament to begin with? AEW desperately needs tag teams in that division. We also have, you know, the Outrunners, again, severely underrated. I think the Outrunners should have been in the finals. It should have been the Outrunners versus FTR in the finals of this tournament. Not taking anything away from Brody King and Bandito, but in my opinion, the Outrunners are more immensely over with the fans than Brody King and Bandito. Absolutely. And it would have made for a more impactful match if we had the Outrunners versus FTR in the finals of the tag team tournament. Absolutely. Absolutely. And sometimes, I mean, and that's the thing with AEW and Tony Khan. I mean, sometimes you got to feed the hot hand. And the hot hand was the Outrunners. Hands down. I'm not saying you're saying that the FTR is not another great tag team. No, they are. But sometimes, like I said, you got to feed the hot hand. And the hot hand was the Outrunners. A lot of fans gravitated towards the Outrunners. And even if they didn't win the tournament, at least we would have saw them in the finals against FTR. That was the match to make. And that's the match that we didn't get. Instead, we got FTR versus versus Bandito and Brody King, and we all saw what happened last night. Now it's going to be a triple threat tag team matchup for the AEW tag team titles. So I think it's just lackadaisical booking, to be honest with you. I think it has a lot to do with the fact that the Hurt Syndicate have a lot of creative control, and I know there's some people out there in the podcast realm that believe, oh no, they don't have, creative control. Man, you lost your fucking mind. I mean, honestly, the writing's on the wall. For those people out there that say that certain talent in AEW don't have full creative control, you're absolutely fucking dumb. I'm sorry. I'm going to go out and say it. Stop kissing these people's ass and trying to rub shoulders with these people. They have 100% creative control. From Mercedes Moné to Adam Copeland to John Moxley, a lot of these people have full-on creative control. And Tony Khan's not doing anything but forking out the money to pay these talents. And that's why the show is where it's at right now. Because he's not willing to be the boss, and he's having the inmates run the asylum. That's exactly why AEW is in the situation that is in right now. He doesn't want to be a boss, man. The other thing I want to talk about, some good news, is Luchasaurus, or a.k.a. Killswitch. He finally makes his return. Now, I'm going to be honest. I was very surprised and shocked that we saw the video package from Luchasaurus, and the fact that he actually made his return to Dynamite last night in the middle of the ring. I mean, he was dealing with some severe lung issues. No one knew when he was going to come back, if he was going to come back at all. Nobody truly knew what was going on with Luchasaurus. And then we see, Nick Wayne on the Titantron. Clearly he has a broken foot, quote unquote. And he's replaced by none other than Killswitch. Now, I think, for what it's worth, he looked great. He looks like he hasn't missed anything. He looks in-ring ready. Obviously there might be a little bit of ring rust because he was out for a little while, but it was great to see him back, man. And the fact that he finally hit a choke slam on Christian Cage in the middle of the ring, sending a message to Cage. This is going to be a really good match. It's going to be very telling to see what Luchasaurus can do in the ring since he's been out for so long. And like I said, I was actually shocked. I was surprised that he returned last night. Like I said, he was dealing with a severe lung issue, and nobody really truly knew when Luchasaurus, if in fact he was even going to come back to AEW. So it's great to see him back. And I'm looking forward to this matchup at Forbidden Door between Copeland and Cage taking on Kip Sabian and Luchasaurus or Killswitch. So that was some small good news from last night. The other thing I want to talk about too, man, before I get the hell up out of here, is Adam Page and MJF. The way this is shaping up, and I think there's some people probably out there that do realize this and some people that don't. So I'm going to break it down for you guys. We all watched Dynamite last night, and if you didn't watch Dynamite, I'm going to let you guys know, obviously, what happened. We saw Adam Page come out to the ring. He was cutting a promo, and then we see, MJF music hits. He doesn't come out. We hear Tony Schiavone, who's obviously on commentary, saying that, MJF has this, announcement that he needs to pay attention, that Page needs to pay attention to, and that he'll be shown on the Titantron. So we look at the Titantron, we see MJF standing there with Ricochet and the Gates of Agony, and then we look down and we see Mark Briscoe tied to a chair in the backstage area. Now, MJF is making these demands for their matchup, his matchup against Page at Forbidden Door, and those demands are as follow. No disqualification, countouts, you can get a pinfall and a count, no counts matter, and that his contract that he has for an AEW opportunity is not on the line in this matchup against Adam Page at Forbidden Door. There's a couple issues that I have with this. Number one, no matter how you want to look at this matchup, it's not going to look good for either Adam Page or MJF. If MJF goes into this match, okay, and he loses this matchup, fine. If MJF decides after he loses this matchup to sign this contract and then goes back into the ring and then takes another L from Adam Page, well then MJF loses that contract. It's over. And it could very well happen. I mean, whether you had to look at the narrative at this point, it's a no disqualification match. So the fact that we saw MJF standing backstage with the likes of Ricochet and the Gates of Agony, I can totally see Ricochet, or at least the Gates of Agony, somehow being involved in this matchup to try to help MJF secure a win over Adam Page and become the new AEW World Champion. That's most likely going to happen. The other wild card in this is Mark Briscoe. Because it's a no disqualification match, we can see Briscoe get involved in this matchup and cause MJF to lose the match against Page, which might ultimately set up a match between MJF and Briscoe taking place about 3 weeks later at All Out at the Scotiabank Arena in Toronto. That most likely might happen. The issue that I have with this is if MJF does what I think he's going to do, and if he loses the match initially and then signs a contract and tries to cash it in the same night, and then loses that match, it makes MJF look like a punk, man. It makes him look like a dork, to be honest. It does MJF no justice at all, and the main event and the title scene right now looks very murky right now, if that were be the case to happen. The other thing is if Adam Page somehow does beat MJF, then where do we go from next, especially leading into All Out? Who is going to be the next person that's going to step up and challenge Adam Page at All Out if, in fact, MJF does not cash in his contract? Even some people are stating that this might be a triple threat match that might take place at All Out between Briscoe, MJF, and Adam Page for the AEW World title. I personally don't want to see that. And it's not taking anything away from Mark Briscoe, but Briscoe at times has come up short, especially in main event matches and high-profile matches. He's just come up short, man. We've seen it time and time again from his time, even when he was in the Continental Classic. I mean, hell, he couldn't even get a win for the longest time in the Continental Classic tournament. So I don't really want to see a triple threat match between Page, MJF, and Mark Briscoe. To me, how I would book this, if Page does beat MJF at Forbidden Door, which he should, then with Briscoe possibly having involvement in this matchup and costing MJF this match, then I would most likely book a Mark Briscoe versus MJF match at All Out. It just makes logical sense from a booking standpoint. Adam Page, I don't know. I know some people said, it could be Swerve Strickland. It's going to be hard to build that up for 3 weeks leading into All Out. 2, we also know that Swerve is dealing with a little bit of injury. We also know that he has ties with Okada. He has a match with Okada for the Unified Championship at this year's Forbidden Door. So we don't know if Swerve is going to be the next guy that's going to challenge Adam Page if he is successful against MJF after Forbidden Door. So it's going to be very telling to see how this match is going to play out. Now, it can also be very bad in a way if MJF does walk into Forbidden Door and somehow walks out AEW World Champion. That means that Adam Page's title run went to shit. And once again, they're hot potato in this AEW World title after all this shit that we just went through with Jon Moxley and the goddamn Death Riders. So it's going to be telling to see how this is going to play out, to be honest with you. Me personally, I think Adam Page is going to walk in and walk out AEW World Champion. It would be absolutely fucking insane if we have MJF walk in and walk out new AEW World Champion. This will be, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Adam Page's first title defense on pay-per-view since he's won the belt. You know what I mean? It'd be insane to see Page have his first pay-per-view title defense and lose the title after all the shit that he had to go through with the Death Riders. It'd be absolutely insane. So it's going to be telling to see how this shit's going to play out, to be honest. I mean, for people saying, Forbidden Door, it's going to be a long day, it's going to be brutal. Look, man, at this point of the juncture that we're in AEW, and I'm one of those same people, I've stated it time and time again. Does AEW need storyline? Absolutely. But I'm going to say, and I said this last week, that when it comes to pay-per-views, Tony Khan is Mr. Pay-per-view, and these matches that he has for these pay-per-views, 9 times out of 10 are really good, and it's very entertaining. I think the Lights Out Cage match is going to be very interesting. I think it's going to be absolutely insane. MJF and Page is going to be very good. Athena versus Toni Storm is going to be good. We have Mercedes Moné defending her belt in the Fatal 4-Way. I think Forbidden Door is going to be very good. We have Christian and Adam Copeland teaming up for the first time in years. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be a great moment. And I'm looking forward to Forbidden Door this year. I think it's a 1 p.m. Eastern start time, so it's an earlier pay-per-view. But I'm looking forward to it, man. I mean, I think it's something where people need to realize that this is what we're going to get. I'm not sitting here saying could it be better? Absolutely, it could be better. Storylines are a crucial part in pro wrestling. To get the fans invested in a storyline and be like, oh man, I really got to watch this. And I know when people are like, oh man, you always bring up NXT Black and Gold, but I mean, that to me, that's what wrestling needs to be. With NXT Black and Gold and what they did with the likes of, Hunter and Shawn and Gorilla for NXT Black and Gold, you had Mauro Ranallo on commentary, and Mauro can sell a match like sliced bread. I remember those matches with Gargano and Ciampa, who attacked Aleister Black backstage and how long that storyline went, and Undisputed Era and what they dealt with. Keith Lee's title run. it was just a great time to be a pro wrestling fan, and I wish AEW would somehow adopt that, or at least go back to what they once did, man. I'm a firm believer, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Storylines in AEW in the first 3 years were absolutely awesome. Absolutely awesome. And now you figured after time AEW might, progressively get worse or something. No, out the gate they were great. As time goes on, it's progressively getting worse. And Tony Khan is so delusional where he's like, you know what? It's working. And the only reason why he's saying this shit's working is because the pay-per-views that he's having. You got the next 2 pay-per-views from Forbidden Door, the O2 Arena, to, All Out being a Scotiabank Arena. Both these shows are damn near sold out. I mean, Forbidden Door this year at the O2 Arena has got anywhere from 17,000 to 18,000 fans. It's going to be a lot of people at Forbidden Door, and rightfully so. I mean, the card is absolutely stacked from top to bottom, and, they got almost 20,000 fans at the O2 Arena. It's crazy. And then you look at, the Scotiabank Arena show and All Out for Toronto. I mean, again, it's almost damn near sold out. 17,000 people. So, I mean, obviously, pay-per-view-wise, things are really looking good for AEW. But weekly episodic television and storylines are lacking desperately for AEW. And a lot of people, and myself included, we're just tired of it. I mean, I'm getting to a point now where, I'm almost used to it at this point. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people are still venting their frustrations week in and week out, and I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm not one of those people, but it gets to a point, man, where it's like they don't give a shit how you think. Number one, number two, what they believe is that they believe that what they're doing is working, and ultimately it's not. I think that they're making a profit over in AEW. I barely see them making a profit, to be honest with you, and that's a whole other episode. It's a whole different podcast episode talking about the business side of things for AEW, but. I don't know, man. And the other thing I want to talk about too quickly before I get out of here is the Forbidden Door pay-per-view, man. My thing is with this pay-per-view and the concept of it, obviously it worked in the first couple years of AEW. Now, I'm not saying that New Japan Pro Wrestling was at its peak, at its highest. And no, it wasn't. A lot of the top talent that was in New Japan left. They went to AEW or somewhere else. I mean, Okada went to AEW, Omega, the Bucks. A lot of things had changed vastly quick for New Japan Pro Wrestling. I mean, Christ, man, they don't even have Naito anymore. No one knows what Naito's doing. He left New Japan Pro Wrestling, as well as Bushi. Those guys are not even there anymore. So, obviously, a lot of things have changed for the Forbidden Door. Now we got Forbidden Door and the concept now with AEW and New Japan, CMLL, and now Stardom. Now, you saw the main event match last night with Monet teaming up with Athena, taking on Toni Storm and Alex Windsor, and then after the match, you see Monet kind of getting face-to-face with a CMLL talent or a Stardom talent. My issue with that is, bro, is with all due respect to at least the women on Stardom, we don't really know shit about the women over in Stardom. And the reason why, it's not our fault. It's the reason of the fact that AEW really doesn't showcase Stardom talent. We've seen an abundance of CMLL talent on AEW television, whether it be Dynamite or Collision. I mean, hell, Grand Slam was in Arena Mexico. And it was abundance of AEW talent as well as CMLL talent from both the men's side of the locker room as well as the women's side of the locker room. We haven't seen much of a working relationship here between AEW and Stardom. We haven't seen a lot of Stardom talent walk in the doors of AEW. It's once in a blue moon. And we're not, people that are like, oh, well, Stardom's being incorporated into Forbidden Door. Okay, cool. But a lot of people in the States have no idea who the hell this person is because it's not like they're being showcased week in or week out on even AEW television. So obviously I think the working relationship here between Stardom and AEW is not as strong as people think it is. I just don't see it. And I mean, I'm pretty sure CMLL could be incorporated somehow into Forbidden Door in some kind of capacity. But to me, I think the concept of Forbidden Door is just, it's run its course, man. I think AEW needs to close that Forbidden Door, to be honest. I just think it doesn't work. I mean, I know Tanahashi is kind of running things for New Japan, and some people love it, some people hate it. To me, New Japan Pro Wrestling, obviously, it's one of those companies that, obviously, they're huge in Japan. They're huge in Japan, and I'm not knocking New Japan. They have a lot of great matches, great moments. They got the best, probably, wrestling tournament every single year with the G1 Climax. I mean, they're great tournaments, man. And I'm not sitting here saying that New Japan Pro Wrestling hasn't produced great talent. I mean, you look at people like Okada, Omega, even back in the day, some of the old school legends, man, like Great Muta has wrestled for New Japan. I remember when WCW was doing shows with New Japan, and they were having this kind of crossover events. I mean, WCW was the first kind of company that was doing this. And they were great events. You know what I mean? I'm not taking anything away from New Japan. They've had some great talent walk through those doors of New Japan Pro Wrestling, absolutely. But New Japan is not what it once was then to now. It's vastly different. It's night and day. And, you know, to me now, having this Forbidden Door pay-per-view and incorporating New Japan and CMLL and Stardom, I mean, New Japan, it's not the same, man. It's just not. And with all due respect to Mr. Tanahashi, does he really need to be a part of this card? No, he doesn't. You know, I believe this is like his last ever wrestling match in his 25-year career. I mean, that's great. You know what I mean? I'm not knocking his career and what he's done in New Japan. But at the same time, too, does he need to be in this lights out match? No, they're just doing it the fact that because it's a working relationship between AEW and New Japan. So, it is, to me, it is what it is. I just think for one of those pay-per-views that are on the calendar for AEW, I can do without Forbidden Door every year, to be honest with you. I think the concept has run its course. The well has run dry. And, I mean, not for nothing. I even said this, I think it was last year, that Forbidden Door ought to be, it should be in Japan for 1 year. It's always been, in the States or over in England. It should be over in Japan. Absolutely. To kind of pay respect to, New Japan Pro Wrestling. But, it's either, that then to now. So that was my other stickler from last night, that it's just, we don't need Forbidden Door. We just don't. You know what I mean? With that being said, do I think this year's Forbidden Door is going to be really good? Yeah, I do. I think the card's stacked from top to bottom. Absolutely. But the concept of the Forbidden Door in itself, I think it's run its course. Unless somebody walks through the Forbidden Door that were like, holy shit, someone like a Karrion Kross or a Dakota Kai or Shayna Baszler. I'm not sitting here saying that Dakota Kai and Shayna Baszler are like holy shit moments, but it would be a cool moment to see for AEW. And I mean, especially if it was Karrion Kross. Kross walks through the Forbidden Door, all hell's going to break loose, in my honest opinion. And I made this abundantly clear, a while ago that, Tony Khan would be stupid as a businessman not to at least seek out a conversation, at least with Mr. Karrion Kross, to see if he can, bring him into AEW, because he's got a huge following. Fans are going to follow Karrion Kross. And there are some interesting matches for Karrion Kross to have within the confines of AEW. Absolutely. Darby Allin. He can have matches, well, I mean, if Wardlow decided to return, maybe Wardlow. MJF and Kross would be absolutely great. I think Kross versus MJF and if they could do it as a storyline, it can be very, very intriguing. Kross versus Swerve, Kross versus Omega, Ospreay. I mean, it could be very telling to have matches for Karrion Kross within the confines of AEW. And as a fan, you can't sit here and deny, I wouldn't mind seeing this match if he was in AEW or that match. You know what I mean? There's matches on the table for him for sure in AEW that would get a lot of fans intrigued to see Kross within the confines of AEW. Absolutely. So, I mean, like I said, man, at the end of the day, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that AEW's Dynamite show last night was completely awful. I was happy to see the return of Luchasaurus. I'm glad that he is medically cleared and he's okay and he's back in the confines of AEW. Christian Cage and Copeland. It's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. I don't agree with how the tag team division is being run by AEW right now. I think it's the drizzling shits at this point. I think the Hurt Syndicate need a reality check. To be honest with you, I think in that situation, Tony Khan needs to be a boss. I don't understand what the beef is here between Hurt Syndicate and FTR. I have no idea why there is any kind of beef between these tag teams. I think Tony Khan and AEW should invest in bringing in more tag teams for this division, because the tag team division for AEW is just, it's awful. I don't know any better way of putting it nicely is the fact of saying it's awful. It's awful. So hopefully they can invest in bringing in some tag teams for this lackadaisical tag team division. But we're going to see how this plays out. Obviously, this was the go-home show to the Forbidden Door. Forbidden Door takes place this weekend, I think Sunday, 1 p.m. Eastern, live from the O2 Arena. Definitely looking forward to that. And like always, I will have a review for you guys and my thoughts of what happened and my thoughts on the Forbidden Door pay-per-view, like I always do every single time. So there will be a review for that as well. So with that being said, though, This is my review of AEW's Dynamite. I hope you guys are out there staying safe. Be careful and